Hey guys, it's Chrissy. Welcome to Crafting with Chrissy. Today we are going to make some coasters for the lovely side table that I made out of wood, all real wood. Here's the table, in case you're wondering. Very beautiful, slick, shiny, incredible. The only downside to this table is obviously it needs to be protected. One thing that I do enjoy doing when I'm sitting on the couch, feet rested up on this table, is eating and drinking. So I thought I'm going to make some coasters. Instead of buying some coasters, I'm going to make some coasters because one of the diseases that I have is thinking that I can make literally everything. So what I decided to do to make these coasters is actually take another branch that I cut down. With this branch, I took the miter saw and I just like, I miter sawed little slices of wood pieces. But that's what we're going to do today. We are going to make some coasters out of slices of wood. So let's get started. So before we dive into making these coasters, I kind of wanted to walk through the design, the plan that I had for the coasters. So the very first thing is, I showed you guys these coasters. I have a few of them, there's 6, and I have 4 ideas for the coasters. Well, you know, the idea can be translated to the other coasters, but I think my goal is going to be to complete 4 of the coasters. So that leaves me with 2 of the coasters to kind of experiment on. So I think I'm going to experiment on the ones that are slightly not straight, and by that I mean, so this guy is, I don't know how to make this, so you can see it's kind of not level at all. It's very, I don't know, slanted. So if I put a cup on that, you know, my cup would just be like leaning to the side. So I'm going to make this a test case. Let's walk through the plan here. I have these coasters. I drew out already in my sketchbook some ideas. So basically what I want to do is take those sketches, they are moths. I'm going to use the moths and then take my wood burning kit, which is literally right next to me. This little guy that I got for Christmas last year, this wood burning tool, and wood burn moths into the wood. And then after the wood burning is done, you know, I'm going to give the top one more nice sand so that it's buttery smooth, and then I'm going to use resin to pour resin over the top, because otherwise this coaster would need a coaster because it would be just like wood that's just chilling out there in the open. So I'm going to pour resin on the top to seal everything, and that's my idea. Hopefully if these slices of wood are slightly uneven, the resin will be even. Hopefully the resin will lead to a level surface. So we'll see if that ends up working out. That's my plan for now. So let's go ahead and go do that. All right, so it's been a few months. I finished sketching the coasters. As you can see, I'll pop it in right here. Sketched out the design, traced most of it in with Sharpie. As you can see, we kind of have a theme going with some mauves and some foliage. We have the one coaster, this guy, that I just, sketched the moth, and there's some stars in the background. Not quite sure if I want to keep that guy going, that background going. So we'll kind of see once I start getting into completing these guys. And because it's been a second, the plan changed a little bit. I know that I said that I was going to wood burn these guys, but within the span of the few months that it has been, the holidays came and went. And for one of the gifts that I gave my Secret Santa for Christmas, I actually wood burned a very intricate floral design and made a cutting board for my grandma. And while I was wood burning that very intricate large design, I realized that I don't really like wood burning. Not my favorite activity, and I don't really want to do it on these coasters. The reason why I wanted to do it initially was so that we could kind of keep the wood texture on the background. But I'm not sure if that really matters to me anymore, so I'm kind of changing the plan, and instead of wood burning these guys, I'm just going to paint them with acrylic paint, and then after I'm done painting them, I'm still going to put the resin on top of it to seal it in, put some felt on the bottom, and then we'll be all done. So actually, it probably shouldn't take very long from here. All I need to do is get set up to start painting, paint these guys, and get her done. So let's get started with the painting of these guys. Okay, so everything is set up. From what you can see here, I have a variety of different acrylic paints from a variety of different brands. Sorted out, I have white, red, yellow, green, blue, and then 2 different brown colors. And then right here I set up my palette with all of those colors, and also black. And I've got my coasters, all of the paintbrushes that I've got, a little spray bottle full of water just to keep my palette moist while I'm working. I'm gonna go ahead and just do that because paint kind of slow, so I want to make sure that I've got everything set up. And then I also got my nasty water cup to wash everything, and then I've got a towel to dry my brushes. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, I didn't prime these coasters because I just decided that I wanted to paint them as I was sketching onto them. So what I think I'm going to do is take some white paint and just water it down a little bit to thin it out, not too much so that it's thin and I still basically don't have a primed coat, but thin enough so that I can see my sketch through it. Now that these are pretty much dry, I'm going to go ahead and start with this guy because it's the driest, and we're going to go ahead and get painting. So I'm going to set these off to the side, and we're going to go ahead and get started with this guy. Hello. While you were watching me paint these guys, I thought I would give you kind of an overview on what I was thinking in terms of style for these guys, because I know I told you I was doing moths with leaves and stuff, but I never really went into what I wanted to paint on them. So as you can probably tell as you watch this little clip kind of speed through, the style I'm going for is a little more simplistic, dare I say folk-arty. That's kind of what I was going for. And it's different than what I usually do when I paint things. I usually tend to swing a little bit more realistic, but I thought just for these guys I would want to do them more cartoonesque, illustrative, just to keep the vibe really simple so that I wasn't, spending too much time painting the coasters, even though, this is editing Chrissy, and this is like, she started this project several months ago, as you're gonna come to fruition from watching this whole video. But anyway, that was kind of my goal. So you're gonna see me just very simply go in there with some paint, just layer, really just simple layers, simple background colors. I used pretty much the same colors in all 4 of them, just changing up whether it was a background color, color on the moth, whatever, just so that they all looked cohesive and they went together. Yeah, it didn't take me too long to paint all of them. I would say less than an hour, but I did a few layers of paint, and then to finish up some of the details, like on the leaves and stuff like that, I ended up going in and finishing up with my Posca pens, just because I didn't want to have to paint all the details, and I was feeling a little bit lazy by the end of the little paint sesh. So yeah, that is what I did, how I painted them, and what I was thinking. Let's kind of get on to the next thing. In this clip now, you're going to see pretty much the finished painting version of them, and the saga continues for making these coasters, so get ready. Alright, now that we have our coasters fully painted, they are ready to get the coat of resin on top of them that is going to seal it, protect the paint and the wood from whatever I decide to place on top of it. I have never worked with resin before, so this is going to be a first time for me. I got this Craft Smart Clear Casting Resin from Michaels, and I'm not gonna lie to you, the reason why I got this was because it was the cheapest resin that I could find in the aisle. It was also on sale for like 40% off or something for Black Friday, if that tells you how long ago I started this project. So I have never used this before, so I suppose I should read the directions and the safety precautions. There's even a little warning on it that says that it has chemicals that can be harmful. Mix equal amounts of part A, part B, 1-to-1 ratio by volume. Slowly mix for a minimum of 5 minutes. A minimum of 5 minutes. Should be completely clear. Ensure to scrape this out of the walls, bottom of the mixing container, pour immediately after ideal mixing and application. Temperature 75 to 85 degrees. Okay, well it's only 70 degrees in my apartment and I'm not gonna turn the heat up. So that's just gonna have to happen. So my plan originally was to try and get like a mold, circular mold that I could just rest the coasters in and then completely encase in the resin. But I couldn't find a mold that I liked that would fit like the thickness and the different diameters that each of these are. So my second idea is to just put like barely a coat of resin on top of these guys, spread it really thin, just enough to like cover the paint and the wood so that it's durable, so that it's not messed up, and then just let it dry. So I'm going to use very little of this, and I'm going to measure it with a scale. I haven't really done much research on how to do this by any means, but I feel like people measure this resin with a scale. So that is what I'm going to do for sake of making sure that I pour accurate amounts of part A and then the same amount of part B. And I also have like a little cup and then a little 100% recycled plastic fork to stir it with. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm going to get, like, I have this wooden board that I'm going to do it over, but I'm gonna grab like a little lasagna tray, like a, I don't know, something that I can put these in and then move them to wherever I need them to dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and go do that. I also remembered while I was gone that to pop the bubbles, I'd seen people use like a torch or just a regular lighter to do that. And so I got this torch, and if it doesn't work, I got this lighter to pop the bubbles, the air bubbles that are gonna, I don't know, just happen when you mix it and stir in a whole bunch of air. And I also got some toothpicks to poke the holes out. And then I got this palette that I just have to put the pieces in when we're ready. Okay, so we are going to put this on here and tear it so that it's at 0. I've seen people wear like, well, that's not enough, respirators and stuff while they do this. So just like before you do this, okay, that's 21 grams. Yeah, I feel like that'll be plenty. And then if it's not enough, okay, 30 minutes, 21 grams. So you need to be at 42 grams. All right. I'm gonna stir this for 5 minutes, as the directions say. Okay, it's been 5 minutes, so it looks really like there's a lot of air bubbles in there. So I have these 4 coasters. I'm gonna pick the coaster that I like the least, and I'm going to kind of practice on that one. Alright, voiceover Chrissy back here for a moment while we cover these guys in resin. Just to tell you my technique in case the video does not give it justice. So basically what I'm doing is pouring a little bit of resin on top of the coaster and then just kind of swirling it around so that it moves all around the edges. And then I'm using this toothpick to basically push the excess resin as close to the edge as possible. And yeah, that's basically the gist of how I did it. And so for the rest of this clip, yeah, just listen to the fun sounds. Okay. One time, baby. Wow, wasn't freaking once. Alright guys, welcome to the long-awaited end of this video. Long-awaited for me at least. I know for you it was a much shorter time period. But for me, if you were, listening, that was a few months of making these coasters, which is funny because all of the steps combined only took me a few hours. Pretty easy materials. It was awesome. So I kind of want to rehash and break down the project and say things that I liked, and then in the future things that I would want to do better. So to start, I guess for the material, for the actual wood fins, for the pieces of wood, my boyfriend and I cut those ourselves on a miter saw, and so they weren't perfectly level like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, but I think I made do with how level they were, and I picked the pieces of wood that I had that were the most level out of all of them, and so I think that worked out. But if you want them to be perfectly level, I know that you can just purchase slices of wood online, so that could also work. You can probably also get them at the craft store, Hobby Lobby, Michaels, etc. So that was number one. And then number two, I obviously changed what I wanted to do. I wanted to wood burn at the start of this video, and then I changed to painting these, and I really like how they turned out. The reason why I wanted to wood burn them in the first place is because I wanted to keep the texture of the actual branch, all of the circles and lines and stuff in the piece of wood. But I'm really happy that I made the switch to paint them, because like I said, I don't really like wood burning and I like painting better. And so I painted them, and then I did finish them up with a little Posca pen just to do the details that I wasn't gonna get with my brush because I was a little bit lazy. And I also painted them in kind of a more folk arty style, and I do like that. But I think in the future, and this is just my preference, I think I would have preferred to paint them more realistic moths and flowers and leaves and stuff. But I was definitely going for the folk arty cartoonesque style when I made them, and I think they turned out pretty much exactly what I wanted them to be. But in the future, I would want them to be more realistic if I did this again, which realistically, I probably won't do this again, seeing as though this took me several months to finish. But yeah, and then going on through the process, another thing that I think I would change is I cut this process out because I was a little bit frustrated, and like I told you, I had never used resin before. This was my first time using resin. I didn't know how thin it was going to be and how runny it was going to be, I suppose. And so what happened was this small one was the first one that I did, and I poured very, very little resin on it. And so if I run my fingers around the edges of the wood are actually not completely covered in resin. So they're a little bit bare. And I know that the whole point of the resin was to keep the wood safe, but like on these larger ones, I put a lot more resin on top of them, and so it's basically covered in resin all the way around, which is nice, but the resin actually poured down and fell onto the sides. I don't know if you can see that, there's a little kind of coating of resin that I did have to cut off and then sand with a little piece of sandpaper. In good news, it was pretty thin, the stuff that overflowed, and so it was easy for me to cut off and sand off. But in the future, I think I would be a little less, vigorous with my pouring and pour less resin, and try and aim for this first one where it's a thin coat and it doesn't necessarily go all the way to the edge, but it's protecting the paint and the coaster for the most part. Yeah, and then the last thing that you saw me do was add a little piece of felt to the back of each of them so that they don't scratch the table, and that worked really well. I just had some black, I guess it's foam stuff laying around, and so I just cut those. to the circle of the wood, to the circumference of the wood. And then you saw me draw an outline, and then I did cut inside of the outline just to make sure that there wasn't any overhang, because I didn't really want that. And the one thing that I would change from that process is getting a new glue gun, because my glue gun is tiny and it actually says low heat on there, so it doesn't really heat up, which is nice. I didn't burn my fingers at all, but it just took a long time and it was kind of crappy. So that's all that I would change from that. Overall, I'm super stoked. I love the way that they look when they stack, because they get kind of gradually smaller, and I love that I have all of the bark on the outside. I think they look super cute. I'm a little obsessed with them. And I know you saw my little setup with the book and my little glass with some fake leaves in there, which, to be honest, that setup probably won't last very long. We utilize this table a lot, and it always has, like, I cleared off a lot of books and stuff on it, so I can't promise that that will last, but I thought it looked really cute. I'm super stoked how it turned out. Thanks so much for watching. Next week, I think I'm gonna try and, you kind of saw my couch in the background, and I have some pillows on there that just look frumpy. I was super excited to purchase these pillows when we got our couch, but I think I'm going to upgrade those pillows and DIY make some pillows. So look out for that next week. Thanks so much for watching, and stick around if you'd like. Bye!